I purchased this guitar new, and after 2 years of ownership, there's a few things I've learned. Like most people, what drew me first to this guitar was its aesthetics and its features. The paint-checked Pelham Blue, the Vibrola vibrato system, the custom Bucker pickups, the big neck carve, as well as the double ring tuning pegs, and at the time I had been wanting to try a Murphy Lab to see what all the fuss was about. That, and I got this guitar for about $1,000 off, no tax applied, shipping free to my door, and a return policy. So that didn't hurt much either. But now I've owned this guitar, this musical monster, for about 2 years. So let's start with what I expected I was getting and what I got very wrong. First, I expected the guitar to be a lot like my R9 in sound because they both have the same custom Bucker 3 pickups and they both have a nylon nut. But I was wrong. Like, they really do sound different. The R9 is bigger sounding with more low mids, and the SG sounds more focused with a little bit of emphasis on those upper mids. You know what? Let's just go plug them both in. Another thing I expected was for this guitar to replace my other SG, a 2013 SG Supra, but I was very wrong because the Supra has a very different sound with its 3 classic 57 humbuckers, its piezo bridge, and a really unique control system down here. It also has very different features with its stop tail bridge, its rich light fretboard, as well as locking tuners to hold all these strings in place. Another thing, it has very different appointments, like a really cool headstock logo. It has this cool inlay on the fretboard, as well as it is a 4-piece flame maple body. The whole body, flame maple. Honestly, this guitar needs its own review and demo because it never should have been discontinued. Next, I expected a better case. Look, it's simple to me. A case does 3 things. Protects an instrument, allows for a convenient way to carry an instrument, and is a good place to store an instrument. And I'd argue that this case only does one of those 3 things well. It can store an instrument. And the reason why is because the latches are terrible. I mean, really only one latch works. You know what? Let me show you. All right, here's the case, and there it is. It opens. Now just close a latch. It doesn't matter which one, because it's going to open no matter what. All right, close 2 latches. It opens too. All right, close 3 of the latches. It opens. Close all 4 of these crummy latches. It opens. So really the only latch that works is this middle one. So if I undo all of these, there you go. Doesn't open. So really all that needs to happen, this process that comes out from the buckle doesn't come flush. So when I close all of them, you can actually feel that it's just going to slip right off. All you have to do is just make this process longer. If you make this little process longer, then it won't do that anymore. And if you look at the original cases, they were longer. They were bigger. So do it right, Lifton. Another thing, I expected a Murphy Lab wouldn't have that Gibson static problem. It's a common problem that many have complained about with more modern Gibson guitars, that it can build up a charge, and occasionally you can hear this like static pop through the amplifier when playing. If you haven't checked out my video on how to fix that issue, it might not work for everyone, but it worked for me on this guitar and a few others in the room, so you might want to give it a shot. Finally, I expected it to feel more broken in. And although it does feel older, it doesn't feel old. And I've played some vintage Gibson guitars before, and they aren't all the same. But this is meant to not just look old, it's meant to feel old. And instead, it feels a little bit like an imposter. Now, that said, I do think it feels better than most SGs I've ever played, which includes some vintage ones. But this reissue, man, it feels better than any SG I've ever played in my hands. It's just not the same. And that just goes to show there's nothing that really replaces time with that instrument. But I didn't get it all wrong. Here's what I expected, and I got right. I expected it to stay in tune better than my standard USA Gibson models, and it absolutely does. As a matter of fact, I actually prefer this Vibrola vibrato system to a Bigsby or a Strat style because for me, it seems more stable and more stiff, giving me a lot more control. Another thing is I expected it to be more balanced. I mean, SGs are known for their headstock dive, and I've had one that dived pretty good. This one doesn't dive at all, and I love the fact that I can put it on and wear it, and it's not a problem. And actually, even seated is not a problem whatsoever. Next, I expected the guitar to be lighter. It's actually a very similar weight to most SGs, but this one has that vibrola, so I expected that it was going to end up increasing it by about a pound. Well, instead, it sits here at about 7 pounds, which is right at the weight that I find the most comfortable. And finally, this guitar is a 2024, and I expected Gibson to do a price increase in 2025. And they totally did. By the end of the summer in 2024, this price jumped by about $400. is, 2 years later, and this is my main SG, and without a doubt, one of my first go-to guitars in general. This is largely because it is light, and it plays easy, and it stays in tune, and has the vibrato, and some of the more articulate humbuckers that I own. But I do have a curiosity. Pelham Blue has been known to age differently because of sun exposure, and I'm curious if this guitar is going to green over time. Honestly, I'd actually love that. Well, that's all the time we have for the Tweed Couch Guitar YouTube channel. If you like what I do, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, be sure to check out the podcast, the affiliate links down below, as well as our social media. But remember that you are your greatest asset. Until next time.